Welcome to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss science fiction, fantasy, cooking, the outdoors, and more. The stories of what went on the set of the movie Rust are bizarre. If anything could go horribly wrong, what occurred there is a prime example. From an article in Vanity Fair, the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office released a huge amount of information on Monday from its ongoing investigation into the fatal shooting on the set of Rust. The release adds significantly to the public record of the events leading to the death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins on October 21st, 2021. But it does not answer at least one key question. Where did the live rounds come from? Film productions often use real guns, but never real bullets. But on the set of Rust, a live round did make its way into a Colt 45, which Alec Baldwin fired during a setup for a shot inside of a church at the Bonanza Creek Ranch. Investigators later found 7 other suspected live rounds on the set, mixed along with dummy rounds. Detective Alexandria Hancock was tasked with figuring out how the live rounds got there. On November 9th, she interviewed Halyna Gutierrez-Reed, the film's 24-year-old armorer, who came in with her attorney. The interview was recorded on Hancock's body cam. Hancock asked, "Why would there be live ammo on the set?" Gutierrez-Reed answered, "I have no idea." The various rounds on the Rust set were a mix of different calibers from various manufacturers, including BHA, S&B, Winchester, and Starline brass. Hancock paged through a series of crime scene photos showing Gutierrez-Reed where each of the suspected live rounds were found. They used suspected to be live rounds because a crime lab had not yet confirmed whether they were. One of the live rounds was in an ammunition box with a bunch of dummy rounds. 2 were sitting on top of a cart. 1 was in Baldwin's bandolier. All of the live rounds found, plus the live round that killed Hutchins, were made by Starline brass, which didn't make any sense because Starline brass is the dummy round of choice for movie sets. Hancock said, "This company doesn't produce live rounds." Gutierrez-Reed was stunned, then threw her hand in the air and said, "So, what the fuck? That's insane." The Starline brass live rounds had the same brand marking, 2 stars with an arc in between, as the dummy rounds she had been loading into actors' weapons. It was Gutierrez-Reed's job to tell the difference between live rounds and dummy rounds. The lives of the crew depended on it. Gutierrez-Reed said, "So, what are you saying? Somehow that one that should have never been able to fire was able to fire?" Her attorney jumped in, speculating that someone must have turned a dummy into a live round. "Oh my God," Gutierrez-Reed said, dropping her pen. As it started to sink in, she visibly tensed up. Her eyes darted, and she seemed overwhelmed by emotion. Hancock said, "Take a deep breath." Even though they were the same brand, the live rounds looked slightly different from the dummies. The dummy rounds had a gold-colored primer, while the primer on the live rounds was silver. A dummy round would also rattle when shaken because a BB is placed inside, and a live round would not. When she loaded Baldwin's gun, Gutierrez-Reed said she pulled 4 bullets without primers from her pocket and 2 others from a box. She claimed that she checked all of them to make sure that they were dummies, but one of the rounds was live. It had a silver primer. Hancock asked, "That didn't stick out to you when you loaded the gun? The rest of them were not the same color." "No," Gutierrez-Reed said. Then she admitted that she had only been working as an armorer for a few months and had no formal training. It's important to note here that there is no official certification process for film armorers, but Gutierrez-Reed told the detective that she had learned the trade from her father, veteran armorer Thel Reed, but that there was still a lot that she didn't know. My question is this: if she had no formal training as an armorer, who hired her to be one? Clearly, the Rust movie producers were incompetent on this issue. At the beginning of the interview, Hancock showed her the industry-wide safety bulletins, which are typically distributed to crew whenever firearms are used on set. Gutierrez-Reed said, "I definitely didn't see anything like this at all. It might have gotten lost in my email," adding that she had never seen one before. Hancock was puzzled why Gutierrez-Reed would jumble together so many different types of bullets. Gutierrez-Reed said she typically focused on separating the dummies that had primer caps from the ones that didn't, but she was not paying attention to the different manufacturers. She seemed unfamiliar with Starline brass and did not know until the detective told her that the company does not make live rounds. Asked what she thought had happened, Gutierrez-Reed said, "At this point, it's kind of seeming like somehow these were mixed in." In January, Gutierrez-Reed sued Seth Kennedy, who supplied most of the guns and ammunition used on Rust, alleging that he had negligently mixed dummy and live rounds, leading to the tragedy. Kennedy has denied that the live rounds came from him, saying that he carefully rattle tests every round before shipping it out. But in a call to Hancock on October 29th, he said he believed he knew where the live rounds came from, but he did not want to name the man, whom he'd only refer to as the other person. This other person was later identified as Joe Swanson, who runs Motion Picture Blanks, a supplier of blank rounds for the film industry. Kenny said that a couple of years earlier, Swanson had made some reloaded rounds, that is, handmade live rounds using Starline brass components. When he heard that the fatal bullet came from a Starline brass casing, Kenny was sure they had to have come from Swanson. But how, Hancock asked, would they have gotten from Swanson into a box of dummy ammunition 2 years later on the set of Rust? Hancock said, "Obviously the question going around is, where did these come from?" Kenny said it would be hard to know exactly. Then he said, She commingled stuff. That's my thought. She straight up commingled stuff. And she didn't do what she was supposed to do. You have to assume that everything's live coming in. All the Western belts coming in out there are going to be live, because you can't trust anyone. On November 17th, about a week after the interview with Gutierrez-Reed, Hancock talked to her father, Thel Reed, who was then 78, thinking he could help connect the dots. Last August, Reed and Kenny drove out to Texas to work on 1883, the prequel to Yellowstone, the hit Western series on Paramount. Reed brought along an ammo can with some reloaded rounds, which he had gotten from Swanson. He planned to use the rounds in live firearms training with the actors. Reed said that using live ammunition helped the actors get the feel of firing a gun so they would know how to recoil during a scene. After the production wrapped, he said that Kenny wound up with the ammo can and about 200 to 300 reloaded rounds. Reed said he wanted to get it back. When he came to Albuquerque, 3 days after the Rust shooting, he asked Kenny to return the reloaded rounds, but Kenny refused. Reed said, "He told me to write it off." Hancock asked, "Do you think Seth would still be in possession of this?" Reed answered, "I doubt it, the way he's been talking." 2 weeks later, the police searched Kenny's business, PDQ Arm and Prop, and seized miscellaneous .45 caliber ammunition and an ammo can. According to Gutierrez-Reed's lawsuit, the ammo can was Reed's, but the reloaded rounds were missing. Kenny has yet to respond to the lawsuit. If the police talked to Swanson, it's not reflected in the documents released on Monday. "He's not talking to anybody," said a woman who answered the phone at his business on Wednesday. The rounds seized on the set of Rust were sent to the FBI's lab in Quantico, Virginia for ballistics analysis. The sheriff's office is also waiting for DNA and fingerprint analysis, which may be able to clarify who touched the live rounds. It's not clear how much longer it will take to get those results, or whether the precise chain of events will ever be established with certainty. So while they haven't yet figured out how exactly the live rounds got onto the set of Rust, what the investigation shows is how little controls exist in how rounds are handled, and not just on set, but also how the sources are handling them. Ultimately, I still believe that the primary person who should be held accountable for the tragic death of Halyna Hutchins should be whoever assigned the task of armorer to Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who was clearly not qualified to do the job. Halyna Hutchins' family definitely has grounds for a wrongful death lawsuit. Thank you for watching today, and thanks to everyone who has subscribed to our YouTube channel. We appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button below, and please feel free to share a comment. If you would like to see more of our videos in the future and help support this channel, please subscribe right now by clicking on the red subscribe button below. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.